Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Maintenance, User Tips, and Best Practices for your Zimmer Cryo device. This webinar is presented by Zimmer MedizinSystems. I am Regina West, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. During the presentation, you may submit questions by typing them in the Questions tab on your webinar control panel. Following today's presentation, answers will be provided to those questions during the live webcast. If there isn't enough time remaining to get to all of the questions, answers to your questions will be emailed to you. I'd now like to introduce the speaker for today's webinar, Jeff Lyons. Jeff is the manager of Zimmer MedizinSystems Cryo Business Unit. He will offer user tips and information about the best maintenance for your Zimmer Cryo 6, Cryo 5, or Cryo Mini device. He will also cover how to get cryo service and a temporary loaner should you ever need it. Welcome again, everyone. Jeff, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Regina, and I'd like to thank all those attendees out there for listening to me speak this afternoon. So thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll now give you control of the presentation, Maintenance, User Tips, and Best Practices for your Zimmer Cryo device. Give me just one moment, and we should be able to see your screen momentarily. And we see your presentation, Jeff.
Thank you again, Regina. Well, the first thing that I would like to assist with and go over is actually identifying what cryo unit you have or have seen. You would be surprised the names that our service techs hear when we ask the question, what cryo model do you have? We usually hear we have the Zimmer chiller, the Zimmer cooler, the laser cooler, the whatchamacallit, the whoozy watch it. So what I want to identify are the three cryo units. What you see here to the left is the Cryo 6 unit. In the middle is the Cryo 5 unit, and to the right is the Cryo Mini unit. Those are the three cryo units. What's currently in production is the Cryo Mini and the Cryo 6. The Cryo 5 unit has not been manufactured close to 10 years, but we still support and service the Cryo 5 unit. I just want to stress that it is important, if you have any service questions, that you do know what unit you have. It will help when you're also on the shopping site if you need to purchase a part that you're purchasing the correct part. Today, as Regina mentioned, and while you're on this phone call, is we're going to review basic tips and maintenance guidelines that will be helpful for your practice and the cryo model you have. The cryo maintenance guidelines, you can view those online, and after the webinar, we will be sending out this presentation and this PDF file. The first thing that I would like to discuss is the cryo filter. Each cryo model does have a filter located in the back of the unit. As you see, the Cryo 6 and the Cryo Mini actually have the same filter. The Cryo 5 has a different filter. One helpful tip and one maintenance almost requirement is that the owner, the user, should be vacuuming the filter once a month, and we recommend the filter is replaced once a year. There is a built-in reminder that will be provided to the operator on the cryo units to alert them to maintain the filter. On the Cryo 6 and the Cryo Mini, you will see as a reminder a message being displayed, dust filter full. On the Cryo 5, there's an icon, a filter icon, that will be illuminated. Again, this is just a friendly reminder that comes on every 150 hours of operation to remind the operator of the practice to make sure you are vacuuming the filter and replacing the filter if need be. Again, it's a friendly reminder. The importance of maintaining the filter as running the service department is we find units that come in that have not been, the filter has not been maintained, and sometimes there's debris that gets collected on the condenser, which makes the unit run a little bit hotter. And there's a condenser fan, which will increase in speed, not the therapy fan, the condenser fan, if the unit is clogged. So it's very important that the filter is maintained on a regular basis. If you do, in fact, need to purchase a filter, we recently added a new shopping site, shop.zimmerusa.com, where you can purchase a Cryo 6, Cryo 5, and Cryo Mini filter. For all those attendees that are attending this webinar today, we are providing a coupon, Cryo50, which will allow anyone who makes a purchase save $50 on their purchase. When you do, in fact, purchase the Cryo filter, it is very simple to replace the filter on all the models, but we do provide a guideline, instruction guide for the practice and how to replace the filter. It should not take more than 5-10 minutes, but there is a guide, and we also have a few YouTube videos that you can review. Any cryo owner out there, please contact the service department. We're able to help with any of your cryo needs. This is just the different guidelines, the Cryo 5 and the filter guideline, Cryo 5 filter guideline. The next item that I would like to address is the condensation bucket, sometimes referred to as the water container. I know these pictures are small. On the Cryo 6, the condensation bucket is located in the front of the unit. On the Cryo Mini, the water container is located in the side of the unit. And the Cryo 5, the water container is located in the back of the unit. This is what the Cryo 6 condensation bucket looks like. This is the Cryo Mini located again on the side of the unit, what that looks like. And this is the Cryo 5. Now, the Zimmer Cryo units are a closed loop refrigeration system, meaning they do not need any distilled water. No water is necessary. I know in the aesthetic field, dealing with lasers, sometimes distilled water is required with the equipment. Again, on the Zimmer Cryo side, they're closed loop refrigeration systems. Sometimes we have offices that actually add water to the condensation bucket. The condensation bucket is actually collecting condensed water from the evaporator cavity. The water will fill up in the container, and as the water fills up, eventually it will trigger a sensor, and a message will be displayed on the Cryo 6 and the Mini, alerting the operator that the bucket is full, and the operator or the owner needs to empty out the water container. On the Cryo 5, just like the filter icon being illuminated, there is an icon as well indicating that the Cryo 5 condensation bucket is full, and you'll need to empty the condensation bucket. If you don't empty it out on a regular basis, there may be a film that may develop on the condensation buckets, and the condensation buckets become somewhat dirty. If you need to replace or order a new condensation bucket or water container, again, you can go on our website, shop.zimmerusa.com, and order the water container for the 5, Mini, or 6. Next item that I would like to review is the Cryo Hoses and the importance of maintaining and monitoring those Cryo Hoses. Running the service department and reviewing the calls from the service techs, we hear that sometimes the unit is not blowing as much air as it normally does. And that could be from 1 or 2 reasons. The first reason, and the more common reason, is the hose has formed some sort of compression point, or there's an air gap. There's a leak in the hose. Sometimes the units, unfortunately, they're on wheels, they do have casters. Instead of being wheeled appropriately, they're actually being moved by pulling on the hose. That will affect and compromise the hose, and that will increase the probability of having a hose being damaged. As you see here are the hoses for the Cryo Mini and the Cryo 6, along with the optional support arm, and the Cryo 5 position of the hose. The Cryo 5 and the Cryo 6 and the Cryo Mini all have different hose types. We've recently added a new hose, which can be found on our website, which is the physical therapy hose, which has different nozzles. This will change the airstream. As far as getting back to the second point that may compromise the airflow, that could come from a unit that unfortunately has been left on overnight. And the condensed water, instead of draining, has actually formed almost like a block of ice and is blocking or restricting the airflow coming out of the therapy fan through the treatment hose onto the patient's site. So we do have also a defrost option on the cryo units, on the 5, mini, and 6, and a message will be displayed if you need to defrost the unit. If that's the case, please contact the service department and we'll be able to assist you with that item. Similar to the filter and the condensation bucket, you can purchase the hose online, the Cryo 5, Mini, or 6, or even the new hose at shop.zimmerusa.com. We do have the option to also purchase the filter and hose together as a maintenance bundle where you will save $70 if you purchase them together. Now, those are just a few basic maintenance items that will help the health of the unit. And just to recap, those items are: make sure you are vacuuming your filter at least once a month, and replacing the filter we recommend once a year. For those offices or treatment rooms that have carpet in them, you may want to consider vacuuming the filter a little bit more frequently. The second item, once again, is to make sure you're emptying out the condensation bucket frequently. And there's some variables behind it. Depends on how warm you keep the treatment room, the geography, where you're located as far as the office is. So there are some variables as far as how often you'll be emptying out the water container. When you do empty out the condensed water, as far as a helpful tip, what we recommend is after you empty out the water container, drop 2 drops of bleach inside the container. And number 3, make sure you are checking your hose to make sure there's no compression points or air leaks. Sometimes you visually will notice an air leak on the hose. It almost form at that location of the break, almost a condensation area. So those are the 3 helpful maintenance tips. As far as discussing about service needs, if unfortunately the unit, after performing some helpful troubleshooting tips, requires service, I like to just review that process. It's a very simple process. And the first thing is, when you call in, make sure you have the cryo model and make sure you have the serial number. The serial number is located on the back of the cryo units, on all units, Cryo 5, Mini, and 6. It will start with an SN number. When you call in, make sure you provide that. We want to make sure that we have everything properly databased. With the cryo service, what we can provide is immediate, over-the-phone technical support. And together, what we do is we run a series of diagnostics to determine what actually is causing the unit not to work properly. In some cases, we can resolve the issue over the phone. In other cases, it will require a repair. If it does require a repair, what we provide, and we do service the whole nation, is a cryo loaner. And depending on the location, we can sometimes get that cryo loaner out next day. We want to make sure that you're not without a cryo unit. We know how important it is to your practice. With the service, just so our customers know, as the manufacturer, we do use manufacturing parts, authorized. We have authorized service individuals. And after the repair, we do communicate what was done, and we do put a warranty on the unit. As far as the service goes, as I mentioned, we do provide an over-the-phone diagnostic to help determine what's going on with the unit. If anyone wants to communicate with us and have us run a diagnostic, normally we do charge $125. Any attendees out there will run a free over-the-phone maintenance test. So, Regina, at this point, I'd like to open up the call with any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that informative presentation today, Jeff. I will take back the screen. Give me just a moment. Okay, and we do have some questions starting to come in from the attendees, Jeff, so let's get to the first one here. The first question is the Cryo 5 still being manufactured, and can Zimmer still service this model?
Sure, and that's a great question. This is a question that we hear quite often. So as I mentioned, the Cryo 5 units have not been manufactured for over 10 years, but we still provide service to these units. Parts are still available. We do have also options to trade in or upgrade the old Cryo 5 units to either Cryo 6 or Cryo Mini. But to answer the question, yes, we still do service the Cryo 5 units.
Okay, I have another question here. What's the main difference between the Cryo 5 and the Cryo 6 units?
Yep. So besides the fact that the Cryo 5 unit has not been manufactured over 10 years, as far as the cosmetic differences, you will notice that the Cryo 6 has a glass top. It has 9 different fan speeds versus the Cryo 5 has 6 different fan speeds. So internally there is a different therapy fan. So internally there's some different components, and externally there's some different components comparing the 6 to the 5.
Okay, Jeff, we just had a question come in here from an attendee. Someone changed the filter and lost one of the screws on my Cryo 5. Can I purchase a screw? I can't find one that's similar.
Okay, yeah, I would recommend whoever that individual is that please contact the service department and we'll have no problem sending out those screws.
Excellent. Okay, another question just coming in. Is there an option to extend my warranty or add an extended warranty on my Zimmer Cryo unit?
Yeah, and that's also a great question. For those customers that have purchased the Zimmer Cryo units direct or through our authorized individuals and laser companies, again, everything is tied into our database to the serial number. After identifying that the individual is the proper owner, then we can extend in a warranty for the Cryo 6 and the Cryo Mini units. The extended warranty currently, every year of extended warranty is $995.
Okay, very good. Here's another one coming in. What is the best way to evaluate how my Zimmer Cryo unit is running?
Yeah, the best way to evaluate how a Zimmer Cryo unit is running is what I mentioned just moments ago, is to call the service department and run a series of over-the-phone diagnostics. There's certain tests that we can run, such as an SO1 test, to pick up the temperatures internally, meaning the temperature inside the evaporator on the compressor. And once again, anyone who's attending today's webinar, normally it costs $125. We will offer those tests at no cost. And they're simple to run. Anyone can perform them. We don't require anyone taking off any parts. It's just a matter of pressing some buttons and telling us what certain numbers say.
Okay, lots and lots of interest in these maintenance questions here. We have them rolling in rapidly. Here's another one from an attendee. Do you have to remove the filter and vacuum front and back, or just the back?
Yeah, so what I would recommend on the filter is to take a handheld vacuum and gently just go over the exterior, the back of the filter. No need to take off the filter and vacuum the internal and external, just the external. So just take a handheld vacuum and gently go over the filter. I'd recommend not pressing too hard. There's 2 ports that are close, or should I say up against the filter, so just gently go over the back of the filter.
Okay, great. Here's another one. I have 2 Zimmer Cryo units in my office, and I noticed that one hose is different than the other. Are there different types of hoses?
Again, good question, because this comes up a lot. And looking at this image right here, that's the actual the physical therapy hose. So there is different types of hoses. To give example, in the Cryo 6, we have a 6-foot long hose. We also have a 9-foot long hose, and we have a physical therapy hose. On the Cryo Mini, we have a slightly different style of hose. And on the Cryo 5, we also have a different style hose compared to the Cryo 6. So when you go online or you call the service department, again, we want to make sure that we provide the right information. We always want to know the model you have. Sometimes we'll even get a picture of your current hose, and we'll make sure that you're purchasing the right hose. So there is different types of hoses depending on the model you have.
Okay, here's another one. Should I leave the Zimmer Cryo unit running or in standby mode if I have a long break in between laser treatments?
So, in this particular case, obviously, there is a standby mode, the standby feature. So if the practice does have long breaks, and I usually say longer than 30 minutes from one laser session or one patient to the next, you can either leave it in the standby mode or you can turn off the unit. It's really up to the office. But one thing that I will always suggest, and it does happen, especially we get a lot of phone calls on Mondays, is because it has a standby mode, the unit becomes quiet and the office forgets the unit is running. And we get phone calls on Monday because someone forgot to turn the unit off on Friday and it's been on all weekend. And the phone call we receive on a Monday is the unit is required to be defrosted. How do I do that? And again, that's a very simple thing to do, and we have no problem helping that customer out.
Okay, Jeff, here's a question. You kind of touched on replacing the filter, that it's not that difficult. This question is, maybe you can go into a little bit more detail. Is it easy to replace the cryo filter, and where can I buy the filter?
Yeah, so once again, to answer the second part of the question, on our website, shop.zimmerusa.com, you can purchase the Cryo 5, Mini, and 6 filter. As far as replacing the filter, it's very simple, but there is an informative instructional guide with illustration, as I showed earlier, that will walk you through step-by-step how to replace the filter. But by all means, we're here to support our customers. We have over 40,000 units out there globally, and that's for a reason. We always want to provide excellent customer support to our outstanding customers. So if anyone has any questions about how to replace the filter, please contact us.
Okay, I think we have time for several more questions. Here's the next one. I purchased my cryo unit through my laser sales representative. How can I make sure that the serial number of the cryo unit is in the Zimmer database?
Sure, that's a great question, because we do have authorized resellers of the Zimmer cryo units. I would always suggest, any Zimmer cryo owner out there to contact Zimmer to make sure that they're properly maintaining the unit and to make sure that we have all the information on our database, in our file, in case you want to be sent any updates, whether it's software or hose related. So I would mention anyone who does have a question to contact Zimmer, and we can definitely help out.
Yeah, I'm seeing one of the questions coming in is very specific to kind of troubleshooting something going on with their cryo unit right now. It's very specific. So Jeff, would you just recommend that this attendee call the service line and get an over the phone diagnostic or help with troubleshooting?
Absolutely. Again, when someone calls in, please have the serial number, the model, and we'll be able to help out with a specific concern, whether it's the unit remaining in pre-cool stage, meaning it's not getting out of the startup stage, or it's just the lack of airflow. We're here to help, and we can help immediately over the phone that customer and then come up with immediate action items.
Okay, here's another one. I want to make sure I receive updates and service recommendations on my chiller unit. What is the best way to get in touch with Zimmer with the Zimmer service department and to order cryo parts and accessories?
Yeah, sure. At the end of the call today, we'll be sending to all the attendees just all the relevant contact information for the service department. And anyone out there who's not currently on our newsletter and wants to be added on, please let us know so we can take down a good email to communicate all the new information that comes out, or even some additional helpful tips from the company and maybe your colleagues.
Okay, believe we still have time for a few more. We're doing great here. Here's another question, Jeff. Can I move my cryo unit from room to room, office to office?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's a very specific question that comes up. And the cryo units, they are on wheels. They do have a locking mechanism. As far as moving it from room to room, I guess it just depends on the setup of the office. And as far as office to office, I probably wouldn't recommend that. But if they are being moved, please make sure the condensed water container is emptied out. If that's full of condensed water, you might find some condensed water on the floor. So I'd make sure if you are moving it from room to room, make sure you're moving it properly. Again, not by the hose. Make sure the power cord is removed from the unit and the condensation bucket is emptied out.
Okay, we promised a 30-minute webinar, so we are going to stick to that. Let's just take one more question that's come in here, and we'll wrap it up for you. The question is, I'm glad you mentioned a little bit of automatic feedback here. I'm glad you mentioned leaving the cryo on over the weekend because I left mine on overnight. Can you think of some other common errors made that I could avoid?
Yeah, I mean, the common areas, as far as working with these units for almost 12 years, and the leaving the unit on overnight, that is definitely something that does pop up. And if you have staff, sometimes the staff member who forgets to turn it off is kind of reluctant to say that they did it. It's no big deal. Again, make the phone call and we can usually walk through the staff how to defrost the unit and get that unit back up and running. I would say, one of the, we touched upon this a couple times today, is the filter. We hear many times, are you vacuuming your filter on a regular basis? And someone say, the filter looks perfectly clean. And then a couple months later, we'll actually bring the unit in for service and we see actually how dirty it is. So I would really emphasize that someone is maintaining the filter on an ongoing basis. Another item, and these are all the tips and all the points that we discussed, is the hose, as far as becoming compromised or forming an air leak. We see quite often on Cryo 5 units that come in on trade, the hoses were duct taped or they were cut and somehow used Gorilla Tape to put the hose back together. When you have an air leak, you're affecting the overall performance of the unit. You're making the therapy fan work a lot harder. And I always, mention, I know nobody wants to spend money, but at the same time, you don't want internally the health of the unit to get worse by not replacing the hose. So those are just a few items that I would recommend, keeping an eye on. And it's a lot of the items that we've spoke about today.
Okay, Jeff, thank you very much for that discussion and the Q&A session. So now we'll wrap it up. If anyone would like more information about the Zimmer cryo devices, please visit Zimmer MedizinSystems website at www.zimmerusa.com. The Zimmer MedizinSystems also has an assortment of new cryo waiting room materials available for you to browse, as well as parts and accessories on the shopping site at shop.zimmerusa.com. And this concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much for attending. A recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to all attendees so that you may review any of this information at your leisure. Good night.